Welcome back, and if you're just getting in the door, we have a recap with some of the local stories you may have missed. From the station putting local first, Vado is drying out and digging out from yesterday's severe flooding. Heavy rain triggered flash floods that damaged hundreds of homes, prompting emergency rescue efforts. County officials say over 600 homes have been impacted in Vado. Right now, county officials say damage assessment teams as well as road crews and resource coordinators are out across the community working to get help to the people who need it most. The county says this is still an active and evolving situation out there, and they'll continue to update residents as more resources become available. Another community that has been impacted by flooding is the Campo del Sol master planned community in northeast El Paso. That's where neighbors report their streets suffered significant flooding from Tuesday's heavy downpour. We've reached out to the private developers of the housing community as well as the home builders asking what issues they have identified that may be causing the flooding and what work is being done to address this issue. We have that statement up on our website, KTSM.com. And then we are 3 days into Texas's special session at the Capitol in Austin. Texas Republicans are using the special session to attempt to lock in the party's majority in Congress by redistricting, something Democrats had hoped would happen in 2030 after they had a few more years to make gains in the state. Redistricting is a directive from President Trump, an attempt to create 5 more Republican seats in a nearly deadlocked House. Democrats say it will weaken or even eliminate Democratic districts in the state. And joining us now is Representative Vincent Perez, who represents District 77, which incorporates a large portion of El Paso. Representative Perez, first of all, thank you for taking the time with us today to talk about this important issue. We've heard the term congressional redistricting a lot over the past couple weeks. What is it exactly, and why does it happen?
Well, thanks for having me. Redistricting typically doesn't matter when we elect the President of the United States, your U.S. senators, or the governor because they're elected from all parts of Texas. But it matters for your representatives who are in the state legislature, your state representatives and your state senator, and your congressperson because they're elected by specific districts. So the party in power, in this case the Republicans, get to draw those districts, and how they do so determines the advantage that they have in the election.
And right now, the current partisan breakdown in Texas's delegation in the House, you have 25 Republicans, you have 12 Democrats. The governor has justified redistricting, which is typically only done once a decade. The last time it happened was back in 2021 by saying it's to address constitutional concerns raised by the U.S. Department of Justice about the current maps under the Voting Rights Act. Is Democratic opposition to this strictly the timing of it all?
No, not at all. Clearly, the timing of it is of grave concern because this only happens once every 10 years after the census when we have new population figures, and usually the state has grown since the last census. But that's not what's happening here. President Trump has indicated that he wants to convert 4 to 5 Democratic representatives to Republican ones. And unfortunately, the only way that Republicans can make that happen is by dividing the Hispanic and Black votes in certain parts of Texas and splitting them up amongst different congressional districts, so that way they don't have the power to come together and vote for the representatives that they're currently elected to represent them.
Texas's 16th congressional district is currently being represented by Veronica Escobar, of course. From what you've been able to gather from all this, could El Paso be part of this redistricting effort?
Unfortunately, yes. Republicans aren't taking anything off the table. There's actually a hearing, which I'll be flying to Austin tomorrow for, and the 16th congressional district, which includes all of El Paso, is part of the agenda tomorrow. So Republicans could certainly choose to redistrict places like El Paso. And the way I try to tell folks is, imagine if El Paso was split 3 ways. Those in the northeast, those on the east side, or those south of I-10. And imagine if all of our congresspersons were outside of El Paso, in Lubbock, Midland, or in San Antonio. That's essentially what Republicans are doing to the Black and Hispanic communities in other parts of Texas. They're splitting them up so that we can no longer vote as a cohesive group.
And we saw something similar, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2003. You had 51 Democrats in the state house that fled to Oklahoma for 4 days. denying Republicans the quorum that they needed to bring the redistricting plan to the floor. From what you've been hearing and been able to gather in Austin, what lengths would Democrats go to keep this from happening? It's something similar to that. Is that on the table?
Well, breaking quorum is an extreme response, but and that's warranted in very rare circumstances. And I think this is one of the circumstances, especially since this isn't part of the normal redistricting process. This isn't coming after the U.S. Census. This is clearly a political move, and it's being done at the expense of Hispanic and Black communities in Texas. Even though Latinos are the largest group in Texas, they make up over 40% of the population, Anglo residents actually have about 70% of Texas's representation in the House and in the Senate. So clearly this is a racial issue. These are the same strategies that were used in the 1960s before the civil rights voting legislation was passed. So it's going to have negative consequences for Hispanic and Black communities throughout the state. And it's just fundamentally not fair. Everybody should be able to elect their representatives fairly without being split up to minimize their vote.
Representative Perez, certainly something we're all going to be keeping tabs on in the coming weeks. Do appreciate you taking the time with us here today.